Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Middlegames series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we have got an interesting game for you here between Leela 0 and Komodo Dragon at the TCEC Season 25 Division P. Now, if you know your classics, you'll know that this came about from a Chigorin, an old-style mainline Chigorin that's been used a lot in engine games. Actually, funnily enough, it was the one of the openings in which Stockfish 8 defeated Alpha 0 in the matches that Deep Mind played. So it's always been an opening that's been a little bit of a problem for the neural nets, and certainly in bygone years, Leela has struggled a little bit. There've been a few nasty losses to Stockfish. But nowadays, Leela seems to play it pretty well with both colours. And actually, this position that was leading to a lot of losses for black generally seems to be a draw. It's a totally confusing position. I mean, it's a real Chigorin struggle. Black's got 2 knights for the against 2 bishops. White's got an extra pawn, but a number of weak ones as well. Pawn on h4, pawn on f3 there. You'll notice that black played the move h5 in order to stop white from advancing the h-pawn further and unseating the knight on g6. Yeah, I mean, somehow this rook has got into a1. Black's got a nice square on f4. Very hard for white to advance the pawns. It's in principle, you always feel that that white should be considerably better, but there's so much activity here that it's just very, very tough for white to get things moving. But in this position, Leela decided that it really was time to get things moving. If you don't do anything, the queen's coming into c3. We'll probably attack the bishop on c1, try and pick up that pawn on a3. So Leela played the move rook g3. And after queen h4, the rather witty move, queen b2 was played, and this is actually trapping the rook on a1. Now, black could play queen f6, which doesn't look so bad. I mean, you take, and you've gained a pawn back. Okay, queen's exchanged. Slightly weak kingside now, but actually the engines really like this for white. Just f4, well, it's quite concrete. Knight a4. Bishop takes h5, rook bb1, so lining up on this bishop. But now we've got f5, and after rook takes, king g2. Well, we're going to win back the piece with fg, and white will be a pawn up with bishop against knight. Not trivial, but pretty good chances for white there. So instead of queen f6, that was never Dragon's intention. Dragon took on c1, so an exchange sacrifice. And of course, this exchange sacrifice is getting a grip of the f4 square for black. So yeah, that's definitely going to help. However, white takes back with the rook on c1. That's an important move for several reasons. I mean, first of all, knight f4 will allow queen takes g7, so you can't get the knight active yet. And of course, you're also pinning the knight to the rook. So, well, the knight can come back to d7, but that's not super. You'd really like it to jump more dramatically, I think, into the white position. So, for the moment, white's keeping black at bay. But, well, black's got some disruptive checks here. So, check, rook g1, queen h3 check. Obviously, if you go rook g2, I just go queen h1 check, so king e1, and then this annoying move queen h2. And yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, white's got to try and work out really, where on earth can you put your pieces. If you go up to g5, I've got queen h1 check, which is a little bit nasty because king d2, you're allowing knight c4 check, and then rook takes b2. So, yeah, bishop f1, queen f3, and, well, it's a mess, isn't it, really? But once black starts nibbling away at this support of the e4 pawn, well, you're pretty sure that the white king is never going to be safe there. So what Leela did was play the move rook f1. Just, yeah, keeping it together, but now we're no longer attacking the g7 pawn, so the black knight can come into f4, and this is pretty scary. Yeah, what's the annoying thing? The annoying thing is that black's actually just looking to play moves like h4 and h3. I mean, there's a real threat there, and if you don't get your pieces active pretty soon, then well, you're going to be in trouble. And moves like rook c7 allow knight g2 check, followed by queen c7. It's not easy at all. So king d1 was played by Leela, and now the move rook d8. And, well, that is definitely threatening some stuff. You don't know whether it's good or not, but it's definitely enough to keep white worried. And obviously, you know, white can't play king c2. That's really what white's looking for now, to try and escape with the king, because after king c2, there's knight takes c2. So what Leela did here was play the move bishop a6. Basically, you're getting the bishop away from the e2 square and putting it as far away as possible. But yeah, Dragon played the move queen g2. So straight away, I love these moves always. You know, moves that exploit something that the opponent has done. You know, the bishop moves away to a6. It unprotects f3, so you attack it straight away. And after king c2, we go queen takes f3. And now rook c e1 from Leela. Yeah, I mean, you might think about trying to run away, but then, well, we take this one with check, this one goes, and, well, getting a serious number of pawns for the exchange here. At the moment, after rook c e1, it's just one pawn for the exchange. You know, obviously that's better than being a pawn down, as black was before, but, yeah, you know, still pretty tight. So knight g2 and rook e2. And, yeah, I mean, the move I was looking for was h4 in this position. I mean, I was sort of thinking, you know, these rooks are quite tied up. Bishop's over there. Let's just move this pawn to glory. But queen c3 is a little bit annoying there. Yeah, pushing away the queen. Queen f4. We go king b1, and we're getting ready to come over here. I mean, Dragon played a move I didn't really understand, but yeah, it makes sense tactically. Queen g4. I mean, if I go rook g1, obviously I've got knight e3 and I'm taking the rook. But the key point about it is, if you play a move like queen c3, for example, black's actually setting up this tactic of knight takes d5. And if e takes d5, then queen a4 check. It looks like a really odd move, this queen g4. You know, it seems so weird to the queen look good on f3, and then you're just putting it away on a g file where you might get pinned. But yeah, it hangs together, and there's a big tactical threat in there. So rook d1 was played by Leela, just yeah, shoring up the protection of these pawns. And now knight f4, hitting the rook, rook e3, and now queen g6. Again, if rook g3, we've got queen takes e4, and again we're trying to bring this knight into play, and of course we're also x-ray attacking the bishop on a6. I mean, for a human player this would just be absolutely impossible, of course. So king c1 played by Leela. I think that's a very clever move. I think after knight b7, I think that we were playing bishop b7 in this position, and this one's pinned, and we're just going to grab this knight there. So clever stuff somehow. But now Dragon goes back to the b file, and well, you know, the white king's going to have to cross there, and well, this rook is looking quite eager. But yeah, this was actually the move that when I was playing through the game, I just really, the next two moves actually were ones that I really said, huh, what, are you sure? Because the bishop goes to c4, hanging of course, but of course you've got queen takes b8, so it's not actually hanging. But that was the first move where I thought, oh wow, not sure I would have thought of that one. And then after h4, the move king b1 is played, and yeah, you know, rook, pin, this one hanging, but you're absolutely safe. Yeah, and of course the bishop on c4 also protects bishop the d5 square, so you can't do anything like knight d5, for example. I can just take it back. So this is the way that Leela has worked out in order to get the the king across to the queen side to safety, and then finally white can start thinking about doing something with the nice central pawns and the two rooks and the open files against the black king. So knight d7 played. Obviously rook b3 would allow queen takes e4. So bishop b3 played. a5 and a4. And well, yeah, you know, it's not comfortable for white, but Leela is going to get the king safe. So h3 played, and then king a2. So how has the position moved along? Well, I mean, it looks like black's made rather more progress than white, really. You know, black's got a pawn, the h pawn has advanced. Yeah, all the pieces are well placed. Instead of this rook, this knight being pinned to the rook's now pinning the bishop to the queen. But Leela's big achievement is to get the king safe on a2, and that means that stuff like rook g3, rook g1 is going to be really dangerous, and that the black king might be the one that gets into danger. However, knight c5 was played, and yeah, there's some cunning ideas here. If you go rook g3, this was a really nice one, then Dragon wanted to play knight fd3. And yeah, the idea of that is that, well, if rook takes g6, I go knight b2, and I'm hitting that rook and that rook. And yeah, if you do something like rook d3, I think I'm just taking and playing h2, and well, good luck stopping that one. So Leela played queen e5 here, and well, it's met by queen d6. And I have to say, when I saw this one, I thought, oh my goodness, you know, this looks actually, I mean, I'm thinking black's better here with, you know, great knight on here, knight supported by this. I'm going to go g5, f6. I mean, this pawn on h3, rook's coming into b4. You know, this must just be worse for white now, you know, out of nowhere. But yeah, Leela finds a very nice resource here. Just e5, d takes e5, and d6, and we're off. The pawn's off, and the bishop's there, and well, the rook's going to take, and this knight is no longer on an outpost here. But the tactics are going to continue. h2, rook c3, hitting the knight on c5, knight e4, and rook c7. So we've got all sorts of threats like bishop f7, and we've also got the very biggest threat, which is d7 and rook c8 check. And I don't know, yeah, I mean, how do you calculate these tactics if you're human? I'm not really sure. But you need to rely on your engine here. Knight takes f2 was Dragon's move. Knight takes d6 here is possible, because if rook takes d6, then h1. But the idea then is for white is to go rook h1 followed by rook takes h2. I prefer to be white in this position, I have to say. The engines don't seem too bothered with black, but, well, I mean, with a bishop and a rook, and this sort of loose knight only defending f7, yeah, wouldn't feel too comfortable with black. I definitely prefer Dragon's move knight f2. So d7 played, and now knight takes d1. So we're destroying this knight, this rook on d1, in order to play h1 queen. But the tactics continue. Rook c8 check, king h7, rook takes b8, and h1 queen. It's amazing. You know, one of the things that I really loved about shogi when I was playing it seriously for a couple of years was you know, the amount of phases that you had in the game, because you know, shogi is Japanese chess, but what you do, you capture your opponent's pieces, then you can drop them back onto the board, and it just meant that somehow the game never really ended. You always had wave upon wave of attack, and I never really felt you had the same in chess. But then you look at engine chess, and that is exactly what's happening. I think that's the genius of engine chess, really, that you have so many more phases than you do in human chess, simply because the standard of defense is so high, and you know, black gets to you know, find some incredible defenses, and you get to a fresh, new, difficult and complicated position. And yeah, I mean, this is really interesting. Now, I mean, bishop c2 was played by Leela, and has to be played, because if I go d8 queen, then queen g2 check, and well, we've got queen b2 checkmate coming in. So bishop c2 blocks that. e4 here, important. If you go g6, then I go d8 queen, and, well, I'm threatening queen d8, queen h8 checkmate. So yeah, it's not so great. Well, you've got to go queen d5 check, and then we get this position, but it's not, oh sorry, knight c3 check rather, king b2, knight cd5, but then we go rook b5, and well, we're going to pick up this pawn somehow, and not clear. You know, bishop can very easily stop the pawn, also support the a pawn. White's definitely better here. The engines were winning games, but e4 is much better. And then d8 queen, and now this is the really amazing thing, because I was sort of thinking this looks quite good for white somehow. You know, bishop on e4, oops, sorry, bishop takes e4, the knight on d1 is hanging, we've got checks, we've got all sorts of checks. But Dragon finds knight c3, king b2, and then this amazing idea, knight takes a4 check. Knight takes a4 check, what is happening there? Well, bishop a4, we go knight d3 check, and actually it's very hard for white to avoid the perpetual here. Well, very hard is a code word for impossible. King a2, knight b4 check, king b3, queen f3 check, king c4, queen e2. There's multiple ways of doing this, but simply, you know, white can't get this knight on b4 is lovely, covering lots of squares, and yeah, you just never get to escape. We just always find a nice way to check, and there's just no way to involve your queen really in defending, because after you go to c1, I play this move knight a2, and after king b1, knight c3 check. Obviously king a1, there's queen a2 mate. So after king c1, we go knight a2, king d1, knight c3, king c1, knight a2 with perpetual. Yeah, amazing games. I mean, I hope you don't mind me, you know, looking at so many of these drawn games, but I do think that, you know, there's so much of interest in there, and I think, you know, often the one games, they're very interesting too, and so there are, you know, occasional duel between them, but very often it's about, you know, an engine finding a great way of pushing home, you know, already a clear advantage from the opening. It's these sorts of fights that are, you know, on the edge, and where you find amazing defense upon defense, and then new phases in the game, you know, that I really find the very most fascinating very often. Yeah, I mean, I just love this somehow. I mean, the exchange sacrifice first of all, and then yeah, this desperate struggle by Leela to get the king across, and all the moves that Dragon found, and then yeah, you know, you get the exchange of queens. And you think, oh well, the game's going to settle down, and then it just flares up again with a, you know, a fresh run of amazing tactics. And well, I mean, I certainly hadn't seen this perpetual coming, I can tell you. Yeah, just hadn't seen anything remotely like this at all. You know, really quite amazing. Knight d3 check, and then the queen can just check everywhere. So there we are. Hope you're enjoying this these looks at the TCC games. So I'm going to keep on swapping them, swapping between the TCC games and a few of my Taichuan games, and also well, at the CCCC at the moment they're still in the qualifiers for the rapid, but once we get on to Leela and Stockfish and Torch, we're also going to have a look at those games. Just very interested to see yeah, you know, how quickly Torch is progressing, and also see how Torch and Leela match up at a slightly slower time control. Normally I would, you know, sort of expect Leela to get better and better as the time control increases, but who knows what will happen with Torch. So there we are. I mean, if you enjoyed the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, take a look at my new books, which I think, if you enjoy this channel, I think you'll love the books. I think they're really, really good. But otherwise, you know, thanks very much for watching. Keep watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.